3 higher ed authors, 100 plus college and university presidents, dozens of actionable insights for academic leaders. Commencement, the beginning of a new era in higher education, is now available on Amazon. Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. And boy, oh boy, am I excited about today's episode. I've been waiting for this one for a while because my guest co-host, I say she's graced me with her presence once again. She's very hard to get. In fact, she was one of the very first people who started guest hosting with me way back in the day. And in fact, you might have been the first after my longtime guest. Look, this is what we do here on the EdUp Experience. Can't even get our words out straight. Liz Libo, who used to co-host with me all the time, moved on. And Lisa, I was like, Lisa, you want to? Oh, see, I can't even introduce you right. This is my day, ladies and gentlemen. Getting up from work to podcast and not resetting my brain. She's Lisa Honaker. I'm just going to bring her in now so I don't mess up again. She's Senior Director of Post Sales at HighSpot. Lisa, how are you?
Joe, I am fantastic and thrilled to be back in the seat with you. It has been a long time, but I've missed it terribly.
Thank you for taking that moment to let me collect myself, Lisa. I appreciate you. And as you know, Lisa, we just wrote a book at the EdUp Experience called Commencement, the Beginning of a New Era in Higher Education, with my co-author, Kate Colbert, and with contributions from none other than the amazing Elvin Freitas. And we're in the thousands. You know, we've sold thousands of copies. I thought we'd sell 10 copies, but people are actually finding that the book resonates with them in higher ed. And we write a lot about the great work that people are doing and give them a reason to bring it into a meeting and maybe change some things. And we know, Lisa, that higher ed needs to change. We know that it has changed in many places, and it continues to change. And one of the women, I would call her an absolute power player in higher education, is this guest I have with me today. You know her. If you're in higher ed, you know who she is. I can promise you that. Here she is. You're going to recognize her name. She's Dr. Marni Baker Stein, and she is now the Chief Content Officer at Coursera. Marni, welcome back.
Thank you for that introduction, and I am so glad to be here. And I am so excited for you. What an awesome book, and I have it in hand. I haven't read it yet, but I am super excited to. I've been hearing great things.
Well, thank you very much. And you are you're like the ultimate power player in higher ed. I mean, the influence that you have had at your time at Western Governors, like helping to change the game of higher education with CBE, with, innovative programs. And now you move to Coursera, and we'll start the conversation there. What has this move looked like for you? How has it been for you? Is it re-engineering in your brain? Is it, give me the goods. Just tell me what it's been like.
All right. Well, it was a big decision for me to go to Coursera. I have had so many amazing experiences on the edge of educational sort of, I hate to use the word disruption, but innovation, let's call it, new models. Certainly WGU was the pinnacle of that for me, really getting to see how new models of education can flourish and thrive at scale was just like incredibly awesome. And I learned so much from that. But I really felt like I needed to take a next step and join an organization like Coursera that was having, and going for global impact. And really using their platform and their influence and their brand to encourage universities and industries and employers and governments to do the right thing on the part of learners in a time when the world needs education more than it ever has before. And so that was sort of my why. The opportunity at Coursera came up. I was super impressed with the work that they were doing on many fronts, but especially on Career Academy and the work with Google and Meta and IBM on their Gateway certificate programs. And so I took the leap.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Keep going. You're going to say something else. I know you were.
No. Of course, I could go on and on.
You can. You have a microphone. You can do whatever you want. you made the move, you go to Coursera, you go for global impact. And one of the things that you said, and immediately, you know how this works for me, I don't plan, I just ask questions based on my guess. Yeah, that's the big secret. I don't plan for these. But global impact, the world needs education now more than ever. And I just came off a conversation yesterday about this, and I ask this a lot, but I think from your perspective is very unique. The skills versus degree. I don't know if it's a versus. I don't know if it's an and, or probably should be an and, but it's talked about almost exclusively. It's one or the other. And how do we, you're kind of like on both sides of that now. How do you see this conversation playing out? And it's confusing for some people on how to interpret all that.
Yeah. I don't know why higher education has to turn every good idea, every learner-centered idea into a false dichotomy. It's like higher education is the best, just the best at doing that. And this is no exception. I think what we see for many reasons, including the fact that the demographic, like traditional demographic for higher education is changing. They are, they're older, they are balancing work and school, they're balancing caregiving and work and school, and they are looking more and more to have a discrete, like explicit value proposition out of the education that they're looking for, and they're looking to purchase. I mean, yeah, they're going to spend money on it one way or the other. And so I believe that the skills-based education movement is about looking for a way for us to communicate to those learners what the value beyond a credit hour, which, let's face it, none of us really understand what that means.
Nailed
but
it.
the value beyond credit hour of education, of this education they're going to purchase is. And so being able to tag, people hate that word, or denominate educational achievements, whether it's a micro-credential or whether it's a credit hour or a course or an associate's degree or an undergraduate degree, to a set of, industry recognized skills, so that learners can not only take deep dives into what they're truly passionate and interested in, like French literature or history or whatever, management, but they can also come out of that experience with a real explicit understanding of, I did do that deep dive, and I have this amazing set of marketable skills that's going to allow me to go out into a very competitive, increasingly competitive workforce, and compete. That's all it is. It's adding a currency on top of what we already do. And it is also creating a currency for new, shorter forms of credentials that we desperately need. And it's so synergistic. And that's the way I see it. I can't believe that we've been backed into this corner, when actually I think it's just what the world needs. And I'm super excited about it.
It's Lisa, before I pass it to you, it's what's so interesting about what you said is we do like to make things a lot more complex in higher ed in general. And so we take this conversation that seems like it would make sense and we make it start not making sense. But what happens is you have the detractors that will go, see, I told you, higher ed's is priced way too high. And now we've got this skill-based hiring and that's what students are going to choose. And all of a sudden you have this message come out to maybe people that don't understand that, people of color or first generation students or others that are looking, lower income students that go, what do you mean a degree doesn't, what do I do with this? And this is really, really confusing. And, who does that,
Yeah, and we just did some research at Coursera, and that's another reason why that I joined Coursera. They have amazing research capabilities at the scale of the world to sort of go out there and dive into these trends. And recently, Coursera interviewed, or surveyed thousands of learners globally in 8 different countries: Australia, Turkey, US, UK, and asked them about what they were looking for in an education, and did they value skills and skills-based kind of certificates or industry recognized credentials as part of their path? And the answer was a resounding yes. Like well over 80% of students surveyed said that yes, they were looking for that, and that they would in fact choose a degree that talked about the skills that they would be developing and that included those third-party certifications or industry certifications. They would much rather choose a degree that had those than didn't. And on the other side, they interviewed a lot of employers as well in those same geos. And those employers weren't saying that they weren't valuing a degree, but what they were saying is they would much prefer a learner coming in with a degree and professional certification on top of that degree or as part of that degree, because it signaled something to them. It signaled to them what that learner could do out of the gate in sort of these starting positions that they're hiring into, but also it signaled interest to them, that the students were interested and that they wanted to develop these skills and they were ready to apply these skills. And so I thought that was just amazing research, and to see how consistent that was in Australia and India and the UK and the US and Turkey. Young people all over the world waking up and realizing, hey, I want more out of my education than just a credential. I want real skills that can help me get a good job. I thought that was fascinating and a real wake-up call to anybody in higher education.
Well said. Lisa.
Are you going to help me now or not?
I am, Arnold. I certainly am.
I gotta use them sometimes, these odd sound effects.
I'm here for it, as always. So Marni, what I love about what you just said is you described me. So I've been lucky to work for organizations that firmly believe in lifelong learning and continuing to build out unique skills. And then in addition, I am super passionate about learning. And while I have degrees from formal institutions, I have definitely had a side hustle on the side in Coursera, in the Coursera library, pursuing, I have, pursuing interests that I feel differentiate myself in the marketplace. And so from a leadership perspective, which I'm just going to go to the side here for a little bit and give a shout out to Joe's book. As much as it is higher education, it has also got so many foundational concepts about leadership in general and how we need to think about things and really open our aperture and be curious about what is possible. So coming back into this conversation, that is really what I've tried to do through these skill-based programs, through Coursera, through the micro learnings that you talk about. And over time, leaders can be a dime a dozen, sales leaders probably a nickel a dozen. They're all out there. So how did you differentiate yourself to stand out amongst the masses, especially supersizing it with all the layoffs that have come? Even we just went through a bunch of interviews, and in tech where I'm at now, the best of the best is on the market. And so that's a great position to be in, but oftentimes that can get really blurry. So how do you stand out? And what you just said in kind of how you were describing it, it does show intent on behalf of the candidate. And are they curious? Are they going to come to a negotiation or a collaboration with an open mind? All these things do become those signals that you talked about.
Yeah, for sure. And not just at the start of a career, but throughout the career, as you're talking about in your own experience. And it's the access on Coursera and other platforms to very targeted skill sets that are sort of just in time for what the employer marketplaces are looking for. I can't even wrap my mind around it sometimes. It's how accessible that kind of education is. And if you have that curiosity and ambition, it's there for you. And I think for me, the question I've been grappling with since I got to Coursera is how do we get other institutions to recognize that, so that if you do make that effort, you do that specialization in leadership or, digital transformation or whatever you're interested in. And then that sparks a curiosity to then extend that to a master's degree or an undergraduate degree in some cases. Like, how do we create that interoperability between these new kind of learning environments so that you can get credit where credit is due if you want to apply that to sort of greater and greater degrees of value?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Joe, before I kick it off to you, I just want to drill down on that. So in my own personal bucket list, as Joe knows, I actually will end up in higher education one day, way down the road. And how do I prepare myself now so that when I'm ready for that, I can segue into that? And there are lots of different pieces in that path. Networking is for sure one of them. And Joe, you've been instrumental in that, obviously a godsend in my life. So thank you again. But things that Coursera offers me can help me develop different kinds of skills that I need to be able to prepare myself for that next role, whenever that is. But on the flip side, I do see Coursera as a competitive differentiator for employers to have in their arsenal, because now employees are coming, as you know, to organizations, to new companies saying, okay, well, what can you offer me for me to get better on the job? And so I know when I was looking for my next role, I wanted to look at organizations that were going to invest in me and my personal and professional development.
Yeah, that's awesome. What a great endorsement. And I couldn't agree more. And the thing that I just love about Coursera, and I think what distinguishes it, although there are other platforms out there doing this kind of stuff as well, is that really we do curate the best experts in these fields and give people all of the world access to them. And that is spectacular. And these courses and specializations, they do dive deep. They are not like YouTube sessions where you're just watching a video or where you're just getting a little smattering of this or smattering of that. These are like serious educational experiences that come at a either free or at a very low price. And I think that's just really a great. If you haven't tried Coursera, try it, because really it's just an amazing resource for people who want to learn.
You know that the world of higher education is experiencing evolutions and revolutions. You want to be part of the progress. Commencement, the beginning of a new era in higher education with insights from more than 100 college and university presidents, will show you how. Get your copy of Commencement, the beginning of a new era in higher education now on Amazon right away. We think you're going to love it. It's
amazing.
Marni,
Totally
I think
agree.
one of the things that makes you so special in higher ed is the fact that you were really the chief content officer at one of the largest universities in the world, the Western Governors University, and you go and you become, you're a provost, but basically a big part of that job is chief content officer. And you go to Coursera, another massive organization. And there's a lot of leaders in higher education, women in particular, but anyone that just goes, how do you even do this? Like, how do you not only get to that level, but how do you run these massive organizations to scale and to, I don't know, efficiency like you have done? And you don't know this, but there are so many people that use you as an example and go, oh, wow, did you see what Marni Baker Stein did? She just went from here to here, and holy moly, what is this? What's happening? How do you think about your trailblazing for other leaders?
That is, well, thank you. I mean, I'm surprised to hear that anybody is following my travels through my career. But I guess for me, I have fallen in love with the problem, which is, I believe somebody has to do something about equity and access to education and to skills and to value and to opportunity. That whole saying that talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. And that's because we haven't figured out how to create an accessible education system that works for the people who need it most. Like that problem is like, I've been chasing that problem down my whole life. And so if you follow my career, it was always because, okay, I learned something here. I figured out how to operationalize what I've learned, but I've hit a limit. And I got to follow the problem to the next place and see if I can learn something more about how to solve it. So when I moved from Penn and Columbia, where we were doing early online experiments, hit a limit, thought, okay, I'm going to go to Texas, where they're working on digital infrastructure at scale for a much broader population with a much bigger access mission. And I hit a limit there. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go to WGU because nobody does it like them. And that's just how I've done it. I follow this problem that I've fallen in love with, or maybe you could say I've become obsessed with it. And I followed the opportunity to let me to learn more. And that's it. That's the magic of it. That's all it is.
Amazing.
Probably a little humble, that's all it is, but that's okay. That's one heck of a good tip. Talk to me about what the transition looks like for you. As you move from WGU to Coursera and you're coming in as Chief Content Officer, are you looking at the content of Coursera going, there's too much, there's too little, we need to match it with employers better, we need it to give it credit? How do you prioritize something so large?
Oh my gosh, that's like my 3 a.m. conversation with myself.
While you're awake at night?
Yes. There's too much. There's too little. We need to align it better with skills and employers and opportunity. You know, it's all of it. It's so big and messy. I don't know if you know anything about the scale of it, but Coursera has thousands of courses and thousands of projects and hundreds of specializations, and all of them are offered, as I said before, by these amazing experts, whether they're industries or whether they're the universities. It's amazing. But it didn't start as a learner journey or a pathway infrastructure to greater and greater sort of degrees of value, a way for you to sort of like systematically build your skills profile. It didn't start as that. It started as a MOOC platform. Right. But here we are, a decade later, and it's like, oh, wow, but it is way more than a content catalog. It is this infrastructure for people to sort of craft journeys across all these different MOOCs and specializations and even degrees now, to make a mark, to build themselves up and make a mark. I think what we're really working on at Coursera now is, how do we illuminate those pathways for them better? It's great. Coursera is great if you come in knowing what you need to know, right? It's great at making smart people smarter, in a sense. And if you come to the Coursera website, and you know what you're looking for, you're going to find it. But if you come to the Coursera website and you're like, hey, I want to start I'm just out of high school or just out of college, and I want to start my career in data science, and I want to figure out, where do I start? What should I do first? And then what should I do after that? That's what we're really working on Coursera now. That's our differentiation, I think, for the future. And it's super, that's super exciting, I think.
Do you have, Lisa, let me just ask one more quick one. Do you wake up, so I'm gonna say wake up, assuming you're sleeping, but do you get up in the morning and go, I didn't know that university and Coursera were doing this? Do you find these things out every day and you're like, huh?
All the time. I mean, honestly. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I feel again and again. And it's whether it is, oh my gosh, I cannot believe we have that amazing course from the Museum of Modern Art, or oh my gosh, I can't believe we're working with this organization to create a music production certificate, or the breadth of it and the depth of it are astounding, as well as what I've been learning more and more, if you peer inside of those courses, the innovation that's going on across university campuses in terms of creating like really compelling learning activities and different types of approaches to video and AR, VR, XR, like at scale, it's amazing. It's a treasure trove. And that's both exciting as well as like disconcerting, because sometimes I find out about it and I think, how do we promote that better? Nobody knows that's in there, right? And that's a real challenging part of it as well.
I imagine the hard part for me would, like, you go side to side trying to gather a catalog of everything that's happening. And then I imagine myself coming across something like AR, VR and stopping in my tracks going, ooh, that's pretty exciting. And then I go deep into that one and I lose my train of thought to try to get my scope around, it's fascinating about how you come into something like that. Sorry, Lisa, I'm monopolizing you. Go ahead.
No, you're perfect. And I can totally relate to that as well. So Marni, looking into the future, and you were talking about skills needed for the future, what would be 3 of those top skills that you're looking to either fortify within the Coursera catalog or actually build anew in those 3 a.m. deep conversations with yourself?
Level up.
Well, so Coursera's, DNA is really in data science and that whole kind of vertical domain. And obviously we are very strong there across all, sort of subdomains of skills in data science and applications across any industry that you can imagine. We are super strong there. And certainly that is a primary skill domain for today and for the future. Is really understanding in any role that you're in today is a data role. And it's not just a data role, it's a role that requires you to wield data and to actively use it to drive whatever your endeavor is forward, whether it's your business or your teacher or your doctor, so that's a big area where we're already strong. I think we're getting stronger, and I think that's going to continue to be important. The area that we are challenged by, but I think some of the really creative work that is going on with AR, VR, XR, as well as new conversational pedagogies coming out of the large language, Chat GPT, progress that we're seeing, that's the weekly progress with Chat GPT, I think is the whole domain of quote unquote soft skills or enduring skills related to adaptive thinking and critical thinking and how you react to context and communication and sort of bias and all these amazing skills that require practice. They require muscle building. They're super critical. They're always the top 3 to 5 skills that employers are looking for, but it's been hard to effectively teach those at scale online. I would argue it's even hard to teach them on ground in regular universities. They're they're complex skills. Yeah. So we're really moving hard and fast into that skill set. And then the most troubling set of skills of all, I will admit, that keep me up at night is like, there's, so you have these big data and technical skills and other professional skills. And then you have these enduring skills that we need to figure out how to teach well at scale. But then you have like I'll call them like the noisome niggling skills. Like every quarter, there's a new application with a new name that does a new thing. And everybody's like, oh, I got to learn to use that, application. And it's like, it's got a very short shelf life, but yet people want to learn it. And it's like, that's a really interesting set of skills too, the niggling, noisome skills that are on this like quarter over quarter, like revolving door. And like, how do we think about those? And is that Coursera's role to accommodate people and teach those skills, or are those skills that really you should learn in the workplace? Or so, yeah, those are sort of, that's skillsy thinking that we're grappling with at Coursera across the board.
I think that's so interesting. And on your third one, which I'm sure you're going to need to trademark that name because I guarantee you Joe is going to pick that up and use it again on a future podcast.
That's a fact.
Yep. See, Joe, it's been a while, but I still know you, man. On those, when you were describing those, it reminded me almost of an impulse purchase at the checkout, because it's just that, oh my gosh, I've got to have this. It's almost a fear of missing out type situation for people.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, it definitely is. These are the skills where after you've got your whole cart full and you're coming up and there are a few little things right there and you're like, oh yeah, I got to have that. I got to have that, and that's exactly what they are. And then that ends up in your junk drawer or in your garbage can. I don't know. Anyway, that's a great metaphor.
But who knows, because it could be the very next best thing. I'm sure at some point somebody thought that ChatGPT was going to be the exact same thing. So who knows, you never know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, Joe, I'm going to pass it over to you, but one quick thing, if we could go back to the top 3 skills, which you really articulated well, and I think our entire audience can relate to those. One of the reasons why you came over to Coursera was that global impact, which you said in your intro. Do you find those same 3 things being the same 3 things globally, or is that just particular to the US?
That's a really interesting and hard question, but I will say this. I do think there is regionality to sort of what learners of different ages and at different places in their career trajectory are valuing, right? And so I think that in certain areas of the world, they really are looking for hard skills with a really discrete and explicit value. And those are the programs and the credentials and the courses that are floating to the top of demand. And then in other countries, like in the US, when you're talking about leaders or developing leaders, they're definitely it is the soft skills and the enduring skills, and the creative thinking and adaptive thinking and communication and diversity, equity, inclusion, and that those types of skills are surfacing to the top of the list in terms of demand. So we do see regionality in terms of demand, and it does put pressure on us at Coursera to think about like sustainable, scalable localization. Like, how do we do that? How do we do that and make sure that we're not taking this sort of educational imperative that's true for the US or parts of the US and assuming that that's true everywhere?
I love that. Joe, I'll toss it back to you.
Yeah, Marni, here it comes. The ChatGPT question.
All right.
I'm not even sure how to ask it. I think the question is, arguably, COVID was one of the biggest disruptors for higher education ever. But long term, it's arguable that ChatGPT and artificial intelligence is going to be more disruptive over a longer period of time. And we're watching it now. I mean, the freak out moments of institutions to say, no, we're not allowing any online courses. We're not allowing ChatGPT. Others are going, let's embed this within every program we have and adopt it right away, like the calculator, because how are you going to fight the calculator, What are you seeing? Because you're seeing multiple institutions, more than anybody else, more than anybody I know. What's the adoption rate like? And what are the freak out concerns?
Yeah. So I think like everything else that hits the news or the trade presses or whatever is, I think that what I'm seeing as I'm talking to different university partners and industry partners is a whole range of reactions from sort of, concerns about academic integrity, as well as people sort of losing their ability to think and write. Like, oh my God, people, right? And to the other end of that spectrum, which is, wow, this could help us to solve some of the most enduring problems in educational access and quality and sort of personalization. And so in any given conversation I am having, I'm hearing all of it. And it's just this rangy conversation that goes back and forth between like, this is the best thing that ever happened to education to, oh my God, 100 years from now, nobody's going to be able to write, right? Or think, right? Because we're going to have robots are going to be doing it for us. So that's what I'm hearing. I tend to lean more toward the fact that this is probably one of the most powerful tools to hit education, and it's incumbent upon all of us to figure out how to put it to good use, because it may have arrived just in time.
And it might be unavoidable, because I think I swear I read that that Microsoft is embedding it within Word and other programs, or at least they're planning to, right? So it might be completely unavoidable. I think about, and I was talking to a group yesterday about this, perfect grammar. Are writing papers going to be the output, the assignment output, right? Can that be the output anymore? Or do you have to think about how to write a paper against an AI paper of somehow, right? So you just write a 3 to 5 page paper on, organizational leadership. It might just be harder to understand whether that's original work or not. And is that the output going forward? How do we reimagine?
I do think it's going to have a massive impact on pedagogical design and assessment design. And, and that will force anybody who is teaching, period, in any place, K through, to get better at understanding how to assess learning in lots of different creative ways, whether that's in a classroom or whether that's in a digital space. So I think it's going to drive a revolution in our understanding that assessment is has to be a critical, intentional, thoughtful piece of how we design programs and how we design instruction. It's not the thing that you add on at the end. Oh yeah, and then let's have them write a paper. And then we'll see if they got this by having them write a 5-page, like those days are gone. I'm sorry, but I think that almost misses the point of the ChatGPT revolution, which is like 3 things that I'm thinking about that I think are just like could change everything. One is, and this is something that we've been working on at Coursera, is think about, I don't know if you've seen any of these kind of demos, and if you haven't, I'll put in a shameless plug for Coursera conference, because we're going to be talking about these things at Coursera in April. But there is a ChatGPT powered sort of course builder and sort of almost an instructional design co-pilot that helps individual faculty members to take their content and other vaults of content that they have access to and sort of auto create really cool courses. But not just that, gives them just in time help with like really good instruction lines and data-driven understandings of what types of assessment work with what types of learners. I mean, that's a really interesting application of it. Another like fabulous application of it is as a coach, like we could train ChatGPT inside of courses or inside of programs to give just-in-time personalized remediation, almost like a tutor, a personalized tutor.
Nailed it.
That, you're in your organic chemistry class and you don't get something. It can help you. And in fact, it knows you because it was with you in your Gen Chem classes as well. It knows what you get. It knows what you don't get. It knows what the most commonly asked questions are. And it's there. Like that, like universal access to a personalized tutor. Don't we think that could change everything about education as this gets, more and more powerful? And it releases our teachers to interact with the kids and learners as humans and solve the real complex problems that conversational AI bot cannot. and focus in on things that are going on in these courses that will just improve teaching and learning, and just, I don't even know where it will lead. So these are the kinds of things that I'm thinking about with ChatGPT. Yes, output on essays and whether or not we can keep that safe and secure, that's important. I feel like we can figure that out with more innovative assessment design, but like the applications to radically increase like the community of care around learners and personalize that, like that's the power of this. And I really can't wait to see where it'll go.
100%.
Lisa, do you have any final questions for Marni before we close her out with the final two?
So first of all, I feel like Marni's in my head right now. So my daughter is pre-med and she is not maybe loving her physics class. So as you were walking through that and just thinking about having that chat GPT bot following her through her pre-med curriculum, oh my gosh, life changer. But with that said, and these three things that you just talked about, what's your vision of communicating that to the market at large? How are you going to take that message forward?
Very carefully and joyfully is what I would say. Certainly these capabilities will be part of Coursera in the near future. Jeff Maggioncalda has already been out traipsing around the world, on his world tour, talking about our intent on this front. Like I said, at Coursera conference in April, we'll be unveiling some of the prototypes, and we're really bullish about getting them out to the Coursera marketplace and to the Coursera partner network as soon as possible, so we can start building this out. And it won't ever be done. That's the thing about it. These bots or these coaches or these co-pilots in building courses, they're always learning themselves. So we're always retraining them and we're always learning from them. I think it's just fascinating. And I can't wait. But I say carefully because there are lots of unaddressed concerns on this front, around IP, around appropriateness, around bias, around, and these are all things we're going to have to figure out, but I think we will figure them out, and we'll figure them out together with sort of the power of the network. And that's exciting.
I love that. Joe, before I wrap it back up and toss it to you, just piggybacking on your comment about bullishness, 25% growth projections for next year is absolutely impressive in this space. So I'm super excited to see everything that you all have in front of you materialize.
Well, they got the right person for the job. No doubt about that. So now's your turn, Marni. You said a shameless plug. Well, this is your time to shameless plug whatever you would like. Take a couple of minutes, talk about Coursera, talk about Marni Baker Stein, anywhere you're going and speaking that you want the audience to know about, anything going on with Coursera that you'd like to talk about, anything you'd like to reveal live here on the EdUp Experience. That's totally up to you. And then after that, the final question is, tell us what you see for the future of higher education.
Oh, gosh. So I would say for anybody who hasn't checked out Coursera, I know many people have heard about it, that you should really, take it for a test drive, check it out, and sort of learn about the expansiveness of that catalog. I guess I'd like to put in a plug for Coursera's approach to gateway certificates over the last couple of years, starting with the Grow with Google certificates that we've been working on with Google Learn. We have created 31 certificates they're on the website that are created shoulder to shoulder with industry around industry skills and competencies in these new domains of jobs. So we're working with Google on project management and IT management. There's one in cyber coming out soon, but we've also worked with Meta on the back-end engineering and other aspects of the sort of meta skill set, IBM, and many, many more. So if you haven't checked out Career Academy or the Gateway Certificates programs they really are designed for starters, people starting their career. They're getting better and better with the thousands and millions. Actually, I think 2 million people enroll in those certificates every month. And so with the data coming through them, they're really getting better. We're super excited about them, and they're very, very useful. Like, tell people about them, because if you take them, you do get skills and competencies that can like get you a job. And I think that's super cool. So check that out. And I would say just in terms of, other shameless plugs, check out, I wish I had the Coursera conference information with me. I do not, but check the Coursera website about our virtual conference that's coming up in April. And I will be at ASU GSV. I would love to see anybody there if this comes out before then, and talk to you about what your dreamy dreams are.
Coursera conference, April 13th, 2023, if I'm on the right site here.
That's right. That's right.
It looks like 4 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Pacific time. And this website is full of information here. And I see your picture here too. So everybody's got to go to where am I Coursera conference. Just look it up in Google. You'll find it. And then Marni, what do you see for the future of higher education? What's on the horizon?
I believe that we are on the verge with the ChatGPT tools of new pedagogies in conversational AI, and also radical personalization of learning experiences. And I wouldn't have said, I've always wanted that to be true, but I never truly believed it could be true, actually, until the last few months. I think the time is here, and I think it's time for us to sort of get ourselves out of like thinking about ChatGPT as the enemy or the enemy of the college essay, and start really thinking about what it can do to support our learners and take them to new heights. So that's my hope and dream, and I think that's going to happen.
Wow. Well, I would. I honestly could talk to you forever. I don't say that often because I do talk all the time, but I could talk to you forever because I've got all these things going around in my head. And my book, we put it out in November of on Thanksgiving of 2022, and there's nothing in it about ChatGPT. That's how recent the craze is when you think about that. And I was just talking to somebody about it and say, what do you regret not doing with your book? And I was like, I wish ChatGPT had just come a month earlier so we could have talked about it in the book. Anyway, it's amazing.
Well, next book or next edition, right?
Yeah. We'll talk about that. It's tough. Why don't you guys write a book instead, and I'll read it. My guest.
Or maybe you could create an AI bot of yourself. There you go.
I should do that. Yeah. See, now we're thinking. An AI bot that can help me write a book, even? Who knows?
Yeah.
People I'm going to ask for advice are on this phone call. One of the first people I'm going to ask for advice is my guest co-host today. I ask her for advice all the time. She's Lisa Honecker, and she's Senior Director of Post-Sales at HighSpot. Lisa, thanks for coming back.
Thank you for having me, Joe.
It's too infrequent that you're here. I'll just be honest with you. You need to come back more.
I appreciate that, and I want to do the exact same.
And I will say that out of all the episodes that I put in front of you, Lisa, and there were many, you chose this one episode with Dr. Marni Baker Stein out of all of them. And I put, 40 of them in front of you or something like that? You
did. That is 100% true, Marni.
It's true.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's awesome. And of course, my guest, she needs no introduction or outro, but I'm going to do it anyway. She is Dr. Marni Baker Stein. She's Chief Content Officer at Coursera. Marni, did you have a good time today? Good experience talking with us?
I did, as ever. Thank you so much for your questions. And it was actually a great experience for me to talk about my early experience at Coursera. So,
and you did so well.
Yeah, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp'd. It's time to
level up.
The beginning of a new era in higher education begins with you. Order your copy of Commencement, The Beginning of a New Era in Higher Education by Kate Colbert, Dr. Joe Salustio, with contributions by Elvin Freitas. It's higher education's must-read book of 2022. Discover how you can seize the moment to change higher education forever. Commencement, The Beginning of a New Era in Higher Education, now available on Amazon. For bulk orders, contact Kate, Joe, or Elvin